The message arrived on a Tuesday. Frank Miller was in his garden taking care of his tomato plants when his communication device made a special sound. This sound was only used for important messages from the Galactic Council. He wiped the dirt from his hands onto his old jeans and took the alien device from his pocket. The blue message appeared in the air in front of him. "Human Frank Miller," the message began, with a voice that seemed to look down on him. "You must come to the Central Galactic Council in 7 days. The humans of Earth are accused of breaking Rule 472b, going into restricted star systems without permission. If you do not come, Earth will be punished." Frank sighed and ran a hand through his gray hair. He was not a government worker or diplomat. He was just a retired marine biologist who had been one of the first humans to work with aliens after they made contact 15 years ago. But the council often picked witnesses randomly, saying this made the process fair. He looked up at the sky where the big galactic embassy station hung like another moon. Humans had been part of the space community for less than 20 years, but they already had a bad reputation. Other aliens called them Deathworlders, creatures from a planet so dangerous that it created unnaturally tough and aggressive beings. Inside his small house, Frank called Elaine Ward, Earth's main ambassador, to the council. Her face appeared on his screen, looking very tired. "They called you too, I see," she said right away. "We have a problem, Frank. The human settlement on Proxima Centauri 3 was not supposed to go beyond the mountain range, but some settlers decided to move into the valley on the other side. And now we're all in trouble," Frank said. Elaine nodded. "The council is using this as an excuse to push for more limits on human expansion. We need witnesses who can help them understand why. Humans need space to grow. People who can explain our nature without scaring them too much. I'm just a retired scientist, Elaine. You're also one of the few humans who has spent a lot of time with council members. You know how to talk to them." She paused. "The ship leaves tomorrow. Pack for at least a month." That night, Frank sat on his back porch looking at the stars. Ever since humans learned they weren't alone, the universe had become both bigger and smaller. There were many new chances for humans, but also many new rules. Endless random restrictions created by species who grew up in places much safer than Earth's harsh environment. He wondered if the council would ever understand that telling humans not to explore was like telling water not to flow downhill. It wasn't about breaking rules just to break them. It was simply human nature. The next day, Frank boarded the ship called Earthbridge. It was humanity's pride, a sleek spaceship built with a mix of human cleverness and alien technology. Frank went to his room, a small but nice cabin with a window that showed Earth slowly getting smaller behind them. He wasn't alone in speaking for humanity. Several other random witnesses had been picked. Paul Garcia, an engineer from the Proxima Centauri colony, Catherine Jones, who studied different cultures, and Sam Williams, a lawyer who had helped write Earth's first agreements with the Galactic Council. "They've picked us on purpose," Sam said during their first group meeting in the ship's conference room. "Every witness they've chosen from Earth has some connection to expansion or colony work." Catherine nodded, her dark curls bouncing. "It's not about the rule-breaking itself. The Council fears us. They've never met a species that evolved on a world as dangerous as Earth." "Is that why they call us Deathworlders?" Paul asked, his young face showing he didn't know much about Council politics. "That's exactly why," Frank replied. "To most Council species, Earth would kill them. High gravity, big temperature changes, dangerous animals, natural disasters. We grew up in what they consider a nightmare." The ship's computer announced that dinner was ready in the common area. As they walked through the corridor, Frank saw an alien figure waiting near the dining area. A Voxley observer, its see-through skin showing the organs inside. "Ambassador Trill," Frank greeted with a small bow. "I didn't know you were on board, Poe." Voxley's skin flickered with blue patterns, their way of speaking, which the translator converted. "Observer Trill, please. I am here to make sure things stay fair." The translator couldn't show tone, but Frank had spent enough time with Voxley to see the doubt in the pattern's brightness. During dinner, Trill watched silently while the humans talked about their plan. The Voxley barely touched its food, seeming more interested in watching the humans eat their dangerously spicy meals. "They don't understand us," Catherine said quietly. "They see our ability to adapt as threatening rather than necessary." "Then, we make them understand," Frank replied, noticing how Trill's patterns got brighter at his words. "Not through force or defiance, but by showing them why we are the way we are." As the Earth bridge passed through the hyperspace gate that would take them to the galactic core, Frank felt they were heading toward an important moment in human-alien relations. Either humanity would be pushed back more, limited to their single world and few colonies, or the Council would finally begin to understand what drove these strange, tough creatures from a hostile world. The journey would take 5 days. 5 days to prepare for a hearing that might decide humanity's future among the stars. The ship moved through space at great speed. Frank spent most of his time in the ship's library, reading about the Galactic Council's laws and rules. He needed to understand them well if he was going to help defend humanity. On the 3rd day of their journey, Catherine found him surrounded by data tablets. Her face showed worry as she sat down next to him. "You look tired," she said. "Have you been sleeping?" Frank rubbed his eyes. "Not much. There's too much to learn. Did you know the Council has over 50,000 rules about expansion? No species is supposed to settle more than 2 new planets in a century. Humans have settled 5 in just 15 years. Catherine nodded. "That's why they're scared of us. We move too fast for them. Many Council species take 1,000 years to do what humans do in 100. But that's because they evolved on stable worlds," Frank said, pointing to a chart showing the home planets of Council members. "Look at the Voxley. Their world has had the same climate for millions of years. They never had to adapt quickly, or die." The ship's common room became their meeting place. Each night the 4 humans would gather to share what they had learned and plan their defense. Sam, the lawyer, was the most worried. "The Council doesn't just want to punish us for this one violation," he explained. "They want to change our expansion rights completely. If they succeed, Earth will be stuck with only our current colonies for the next 100 years. Paul, the young engineer, slammed his fist on the table. "That's not fair. Earth is crowded. We need room to grow." "Careful," Frank warned, nodding toward Observer Trill, who had just entered the room. The alien skin patterns showed it was listening carefully. "Your colleague speaks truth," Trill said, moving closer. "But the Council does not work on what humans call fair. It works on stability and safety. Human expansion threatens both." Frank faced the alien directly. "How?" "We follow your technology rules. We don't bring harmful life forms to new worlds. We stay away from developing species." Trill's skin rippled, and what Frank had learned was their version of a sigh. "It is not what humans do, but how quickly you do it. You adapt faster than Council prediction models can track. This creates uncertainty. The Council fears uncertainty above all else." After Trill left, the humans spoke more quietly. "We need to show them we're not a threat," Catherine said. "But we also can't accept unfair restrictions," Paul added. Frank thought about what Trill had said. Maybe we're looking at this wrong. The issue isn't that we broke their rule. The issue is that they don't understand why we make the choices we do. On the 4th day of their journey, Frank was looking out a viewing window when he felt someone approach. It was Sam, the lawyer, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Couldn't sleep either?" Sam asked, handing Frank one of the cups. Frank took a sip of the hot drink. "I was thinking about Earth, about how it shaped us." Sam nodded. "You mean as Deathworlders?" "Yes. The Council species evolved in places where patience was the best survival strategy, where waiting for the perfect moment meant success." Frank turned to look out at the stars again. "But on Earth, waiting too long often meant death. Act now or die later was our lesson. So we learned to bend rules when survival required it," Sam said. "Exactly. Not because we don't respect rules, but because flexibility kept us alive." Frank's eyes lit up with an idea. That's what we need to make them understand. The fifth day brought them in sight of the galactic core, a massive ring structure built around a stable wormhole. Lights from countless windows and docks made it look like a giant jewel against the black of space. The Earth bridge slowed as it approached one of the human docking ports. Frank and the others gathered their things. Each had spent the journey, in their own way. Sam reviewing legal documents, Catherine studying alien cultures, Paul preparing technical explanations of the colony expansion. Frank had done something different. He had prepared a demonstration. As they prepared to leave the ship, Observer Trill approached Frank. "You have been quiet these past days, human Frank. Have you given up your defense already?" Frank smiled. "Not given up, Observer Trill. Just taking a different approach." The alien's skin flickered with curious patterns. "Explain." "Instead of arguing about whether we broke your rules, I want to show the Council why humans view rules differently than other species." Trill's patterns showed doubt. "The Council has studied human history extensively." "Studying isn't experiencing," Frank replied. "You can read about fire, but that doesn't tell you what it feels like to be burned." The viewing port showed they were getting closer to the core. The massive structure filled their view now. Thousands of ships of all sizes moved around it, a dance of traffic controlled by the core's advanced systems. "Do you know why humans explore, Observer Trill?" Frank asked. "It's not just curiosity or ambition. It's built into us from tens of thousands of years of survival on a world that constantly tried to kill us. Many species evolved through survival. Challenges," Trill replied. "But how many faced extinction more than once? How many had to leave their homes dozens of times because staying meant death?" Frank watched the alien's reaction carefully. "Flexibility isn't a choice for us. It's as necessary as breathing." The ship docked with a gentle bump. Through the viewing port, they could see humans in official uniforms waiting for them. The moment had come to face the Council. As they walked toward the exit, Frank felt a new resolve. They weren't going to win by arguing technicalities or making promises. They would win by making the Council truly understand what it meant to be human, to be a Deathworlder in a galaxy of rules made by those who had never faced true hardship. "Ready?" Catherine asked as they stood before the airlock door. Frank nodded. "Time to show the galaxy why Deathworlders sometimes need to defy the rules." Frank stepped off the ship and into the galactic core station. The air smelled different here, clean but artificial. The gravity felt lighter than Earth, making each step feel bouncy. Lights glowed softly from the walls, floor, and ceiling, leaving no shadows anywhere. A woman in a blue uniform approached them. "Welcome to the core. I'm Nadine Clark, Earth's assistant representative. Ambassador Elaine asked me to meet you." She led them through wide hallways filled with aliens of many shapes and sizes. Some floated in the air, others moved on many legs. Some were small like children. Others were taller than doors. All of them looked at the humans with interest or fear. "They're staring at us," Paul whispered. "Of course they are," Nadine replied. "Many of them have never seen a Deathworlder up close before. To them, you're like walking tigers." Frank noticed how other species moved away as they passed. "They really are afraid of us," Nadine nodded. "Humans are stronger, faster, and more durable than 90% of Council species. Plus, we heal from injuries that would kill most of them. That makes them nervous." She led them to their rooms in the Earth section of the core. Here, everything was designed to feel more like home. The gravity was stronger, the temperature warmer, and the lights brighter. "Rest today," she told them. "Tomorrow you'll meet with Ambassador Elaine. The hearing starts the day after." Frank couldn't sleep that night. He worked on his plan instead, sending messages to Earth for the things he would need. When morning came, he had dark circles under his eyes, but a smile on his face. Ambassador Elaine met them in a meeting room. She was a tall woman with short, gray hair and a serious face. She didn't waste time on small talk. "The situation is worse than we thought," she said. "The Council isn't just concerned about the boundary violation. They want to put all human expansion under direct Council control." "They can't do that," Sam argued. The Treaty of Admission gives all species the right to manage their own colonial affairs. They're trying to classify humans as a high-risk species, Elaine explained. It would give them special control over us that they don't have over others. Catherine frowned. That's discrimination. It is, Elaine agreed. But if they vote for it, we'll have no choice but to accept it or leave the council entirely. Frank cleared his throat. I have an idea. Instead of just defending ourselves with words, we should give them an experience. What kind of experience? Elaine looked doubtful. Frank explained his plan. At first, Elaine shook her head, but as he continued, she began to look thoughtful. By the time he finished, she was nodding slowly. It's risky, she said. It might make them even more afraid of us. Or it might help them understand us for the first time, Frank argued. After a long silence, Elaine agreed. We'll try it, but we need to be very careful. The next day, the hearing began. The council chamber was huge, a round room with seats, rising in circles around a center area. Hundreds of aliens of all types filled the seats. In the center was a floating platform where speakers would stand. The humans sat in their assigned section. Frank felt the eyes of the entire galaxy on them. A large jelly-like creature floated to the center platform. This was High Counselor Zex, the leader of the council. Its voice came through translation devices at each seat. This hearing will examine the actions of humans in the Proxima Centauri system and determine if additional oversight of human expansion is needed, it announced. The first part of the hearing was long and boring. Council members showed charts and data about human expansion rates. They talked about rules and treaties. They listed all the ways humans were different from normal species. Then it was Earth's turn. Ambassador Elaine spoke first, defending humanity's record. She showed that humans had followed most rules and had been good neighbors to other species. Humans are different, she admitted. We evolved on a world that challenged us. But different doesn't mean dangerous. Next, Sam presented legal arguments. Paul explained the technical reasons why the colonists had moved beyond the boundary. Catherine talked about human culture and psychology. Finally, it was Frank's turn. He walked to the center platform, feeling the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. Honored council members, he began. You've heard many facts about humans today, but facts don't create understanding. Experience does. He pressed a button on a small device he carried. Suddenly, the environmental controls in the chamber began to change. The temperature dropped several degrees. The lights dimmed slightly. The gravity increased by 10%. Surprised murmurs filled the room as council members felt the changes. Some of the more delicate species looked uncomfortable. This is a mild version of what humans deal with daily on Earth, Frank explained. Our world isn't constant like most of yours. It changes. It challenges us. It teaches us to adapt or die. He pressed another button. Sudden loud noises, like thunder, boomed through the chamber. Several council members jumped or flinched. On Earth, unexpected dangers are normal, Frank continued. What does this teach humans? To react quickly, to make decisions fast, to value solutions over process. The climate in the room changed again, now becoming warmer and more humid. Frank could see council members shifting uncomfortably when the colonists on Proxima Centauri faced dangerous ground movements. They didn't have time to ask permission. In the moment, they had to choose. Follow the exact rules and risk lives, or adapt to survive. Frank looked directly at High Counselor Zex. They chose survival, as humans always have, not out of disrespect for your rules, but because on a death world, flexibility isn't a choice. It's necessary for life. He turned off his device, and the chamber returned to normal. Many council members seemed relieved, but they were also thinking deeply about what they had just experienced. We don't ask for special treatment, Frank concluded. We ask for understanding. Judge us not by how well we follow every rule, but by our intentions and our results. As Frank returned to his seat, the chamber was completely silent. For the first time, the council members weren't seeing humans as rule breakers. They were seeing them as creatures shaped by a harsh world. creatures whose differences came from necessity, not choice. High Counselor Zex announced that the council would consider all they had heard and give their decision the next day. The humans left the chamber. Frank felt hope. He had shown them something about humanity that words alone never could. The human team gathered in their meeting room after the hearing. Everyone was quiet at first, thinking about what had just happened. Then Paul broke the silence. "Did it work?" he asked Frank. "Your demonstration?" Frank sighed and sat down heavily, in a chair. "I don't know. They seemed affected by it, but the council has been around for thousands of years. They don't change their minds easily." Ambassador Elaine looked at her communication device. "I'm getting messages from other Earth representatives. News of your demonstration is spreading through the core. Some species are upset, saying you tried to threaten the council." "That wasn't my intention," Frank said quickly. "I know, but others see it differently." Elaine paused. "However, some of the younger species on the council are actually supporting us now. They say your demonstration helped them understand humans better." Catherine smiled. "That's good news, right?" "Maybe," Elaine said. "But the final decision is tomorrow, and the older, more powerful species tend to stick together. They still have the majority of votes." There was a soft chime at the door. When it opened, Observer Trill floated in. The alien skin was showing patterns none of them had seen before. "Observer Trill," Frank greeted, standing up. "What brings you here?" "Curiosity," the alien replied. "Your demonstration was unexpected. Many council members are discussing it." "Are they angry?" Sam asked. Trill's skin rippled. "Some are. Others are thoughtful. I myself have questions." Frank gestured to an empty chair. "Please ask them." Trill remained floating. "The conditions you created in the chamber, they were mild compared to Earth?" "Very mild," Frank confirmed. "Real Earth has much bigger changes in temperature, gravity, and weather. And we have things the chamber couldn't simulate, like dangerous animals and plants, diseases, natural disasters. And humans evolved in these conditions?" Trill's skin was showing patterns of disbelief. "We did. Over millions of years," Frank explained. "It's why we're tough. Why we heal quickly. Why we can eat foods that would poison other species. Our world made us this way." Trill was quiet for a moment, then asked, "And the colony on Proxima Centauri, they faced danger?" Paul stepped forward. "Yes. Our sensors detected ground movements that could have destroyed the settlement. Waiting for council permission would have taken months. By then, everyone might have died. So they moved to safety, knowing they were breaking the rules," Trill said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes," Paul admitted. "They chose life over rules." Trill's skin showed a new pattern, something like acceptance. "I will share this perspective with others. Perhaps it will help." Then the alien left as quietly as it had come. That night, none of the humans could sleep well. Their future in the galaxy would be decided tomorrow. Frank sat by the window in his room, looking out at the stars and the busy traffic of ships around the core. "What are you thinking about?" Catherine asked, coming into the room with 2 cups of tea. Frank took one of the cups. "Earth, and whether we belong out here." "Of course we do," Catherine said firmly. "The galaxy is for everyone, not just species that evolved in easy conditions." "But maybe they're right to be cautious about us," Frank mused. "We do move faster than they're comfortable with. We do take risks they wouldn't take." Catherine sat down across from him. "That doesn't make us wrong or bad, just different. The galaxy needs diversity to thrive. I hope the council sees it that way," Frank said. The next morning, the humans returned to the council chamber. It seemed even more crowded than before. Word of the unusual hearing had spread, and many species wanted to see the outcome. High Counselor Zex floated to the center platform. The chamber went silent. This council has carefully considered the matter of human expansion and the violation of boundaries on Proxima Centauri III, Zex began. "We have reviewed all testimony and evidence. Frank held his breath. Around him, the other humans were equally tense. The evolution of species on different worlds leads to different traits and tendencies, Zex continued. What the Council has failed to fully appreciate until now is how deeply these evolutionary origins affect behavior and decision-making. Frank glanced at Elaine, who looked surprised. This wasn't the usual formal language of Council rulings. The demonstration yesterday, while unusual, provided valuable insight, Zex said. It showed that what some species consider defiance may, for humans, be a necessary adaptation based on their evolutionary history. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some sounded pleased, others concerned. Therefore, Zex announced, this council will create a new framework for evaluating expansion activities, one that considers the evolutionary background of each species and provides appropriate flexibility while maintaining necessary order. Frank couldn't believe what he was hearing. The council wasn't going to restrict human expansion further. They were actually changing their approach. The human colonists who cross the boundary will receive a formal warning, Zex concluded. But no further sanctions will be imposed, and the proposal for additional oversight of human expansion is rejected. The Earth section erupted in relieved conversation. Ambassador Elaine was already talking rapidly into her communication device, sharing the news with Earth. Sam was shaking Frank's hand vigorously. Catherine had tears in her eyes. You did it, Paul told Frank. Your demonstration changed their minds. Frank shook his head. No, we all did it, by helping them understand us better. As the council session ended and people began to leave, Frank noticed observer Trill approaching. The alien skin was showing patterns that Frank recognized as satisfaction. Your species continues to surprise us, Trill said. Most would have simply argued against the rules. You instead helped us understand why the rules themselves needed to change. Frank smiled. That's another human trait. We don't just adapt to our environment. Sometimes we change the environment itself. Trill's skin flickered with what might have been humor. A concerning trait, perhaps, but also a valuable one. The council has existed for thousands of years. Perhaps it has grown too rigid, too comfortable. As they walked out of the chamber together, Frank realized something important had changed. The aliens still saw humans as different, as Deathworlders, but now they were beginning to see that difference as potentially valuable, not just dangerous. The journey back to Earth would begin tomorrow. But tonight the humans would celebrate. They had defended not just their right to expand, but their right to be themselves, creatures shaped by a harsh world, who sometimes needed to defy the rules not out of rebellion, but out of the deep-rooted need to survive and thrive. 6 months had passed since the council hearing. Frank was back in his garden tending to his tomato plants, but now, beside his human vegetables, he was growing strange blue fruits from a planet called Merov. The alien plants needed special care to survive in Earth's harsh conditions, but Frank enjoyed the challenge. His communication device beeped. It was Catherine, her face appearing above the small disk. Frank, have you heard the news? Her eyes were bright with excitement. What news? Frank asked, wiping soil from his hands. The new expansion framework is official. The council just approved it unanimously. She looked like she might burst with happiness. And they want you to come back to the core for the signing ceremony. Frank was surprised. Me? Why not Ambassador Elaine or someone official? They asked for you specifically. Apparently your demonstration made quite an impression. Catherine grinned. Pack your bags, Frank. We're going back to space. 2 weeks later, Frank found himself on the Earth bridge once again, heading toward the galactic core. This time the mood was very different. Instead of worry and defense plans, there was excitement about the future. Catherine had come along again, as had Sam. Paul had stayed behind on Earth, preparing for a new job with the Colonial Department. But there was a new human with them, a young woman named Lily Rogers who worked in alien relations. I can't believe I'm meeting the famous Frank Miller, Lily said when they were introduced. Your demonstration to the council is now required viewing in all our training programs. Frank felt embarrassed. I just showed them a little of what Earth is like. You showed them how to understand us, Lily corrected. That's much more important. When they arrived at the core, they were greeted not by a junior representative but by Ambassador Elaine herself. She looked much happier than the last time Frank had seen her. "Welcome back," she said, shaking Frank's hand warmly. "Things have changed a lot since you were here last." As they walked through the corridors of the core, Frank noticed the difference immediately. Aliens still looked at the humans with interest, but the fear seemed gone. Some even nodded in greeting. "The framework you inspired has created a whole new approach to interspecies relations," Elaine explained as they walked. "Instead of expecting all species to act the same way, the Council now recognizes that evolutionary history shapes behavior and decision-making." "And this has helped humans?" Sam asked. "Humans and others," Elaine said. "It turns out we weren't the only ones struggling with the old system. Species from high-gravity worlds, from planets with extreme weather, from places with intense competition, they all faced similar challenges." They reached a large meeting hall where many aliens had gathered. Frank recognized some from the Council. Others were new to him. But right at the front was Observer Trill, whose skin patterns brightened when the humans entered. Trill floated over to them. "Human Frank, it is good to see you again." "You too, Observer Trill. Though I suppose you're not observing anymore." Trill's skin showed patterns of amusement. "I have been promoted. I am now Ambassador Trill, Special Representative for Intergalactic Understanding." "Congratulations," Frank said sincerely. "It is thanks to you in part," Trill replied. "After our conversation, I shared my insights with the Council. It helped them see what they had been missing." The ceremony began soon after. High Counselor, Zex and representatives from 20 major species, including Earth, gathered on a central platform. They each placed their hand, or tentacle or wingtip or whatever they had, on a glowing document. "Today marks a new chapter in galactic cooperation," Zex announced to the crowd. "With the adaptive expansion framework, we recognize that diversity of evolution creates diversity of approach. What works for one species may not work for another. What seems reasonable to one may seem impossible to another." Frank listened with growing pride. This was so different from the rigid, one-size-fits-all approach that had caused so many problems. "Under this framework," Zex continued, "expansion will be judged not just by adherence to specific boundaries or timelines, but by impact, intention, and necessity. Species from challenging worlds will have greater flexibility in emergency situations, while all will share the responsibility of minimizing impact on developing worlds and preserving galactic resources." After the ceremony, there was a reception. Frank found himself surrounded by aliens eager to talk to him. Many were from worlds that, while not as harsh as Earth, were still challenging. "Your people showed us we don't have to be ashamed of our evolutionary needs," Huaro said, a reptile-like being from a high-gravity world. "My species has always moved cautiously," added a small furry alien, "but we now recognize that others cannot always afford such caution." Later, Frank stood by a viewing window looking out at the stars. Ambassador Trill joined him. "You are thinking deep thoughts, human Frank." Frank smiled. "I'm thinking about rules and why we need them, and when we need to change them." "A worthy topic," Trill agreed. "Rules should serve life, not restrict it unnecessarily." "Exactly," Frank said. "Back on Earth we used to have a saying, the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. Sometimes following the exact words of a rule goes against the reason the rule was created in the first place." Trill's skin showed patterns of understanding. "This is wisdom. The Council created rules to protect and preserve life. When those rules began to threaten life instead, change was needed." As the Earth bridge journeyed home a few days later, Frank felt a new sense of hope. Humanity's place in the galaxy was changing. They were still Deathworlders, still strange and sometimes frightening to other species. But now, that difference was starting to be seen as valuable rather than dangerous. When they reached Earth, a small crowd of reporters was waiting at the spaceport. Frank tried to slip away, but Elaine pulled him to the front. "Tell them what happened," she encouraged. "People need to know." So Frank spoke simply and honestly about the new framework and what it meant for humanity's future among the stars. As he talked, he realized something important. By helping the Council understand why humans sometimes needed to defy rules, he had actually helped create better rules, ones that recognized the diversity of life and the many paths that evolution could take. That night, back in his garden under the stars, Frank looked up at the sky with new eyes. The universe was vast and filled with different kinds of life. Some evolved in gentle places, some in harsh ones, but all had something to offer, something to teach. And sometimes, the greatest wisdom came not from perfect obedience to the rules, but from understanding when and why to question them.